You are listening to Rooted to Earth, a SAE Innova podcast.
This is one of our biggest challenges. This is what we do: is this knowledge transfer, communication, and trying to bridge this gap of also like the gap between academic knowledge and implemented knowledge, but also the language barrier. Desertification is man-made, not solely from climate change. It is also again man-made, but it's also something that's very much fueled by humans mistreating the nature. There is a solution. We are one with nature. We are nature. We are nature. Without nature, we don't exist.
This is a space for real conversations, from farmers and scientists to community leaders and innovators, each of them working to bring nature back into balance. This is Rooted to Earth. Welcome to this new episode. And let me introduce you to Vesela Tanaskovic Gassner, a planeteer by heart, a scientist, and an architect by training. She is known internationally as a visionary activist with a special interest in empowering individuals and organizations to see the potential of their surroundings and their inner strengths, building exponential communities around afforestation projects to restore the environment, focusing on agroforestry and removal of dam sediments, applying an holistic approach of integrating exponential technologies with deeply ingrained circular economy lenses for impact. She is an eco-science entrepreneur. Combining science and love for nature, she founded Afforest4Future, an NGO focused on transforming the world's deserts into food forests, using collaborative approach of integrating multiple option choices into an AI platform of the future. Hi Vesela, welcome. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Fernando, for having me. Very pleased to be here.
You work on regenerative afforestation projects worldwide. My first question will be, what are the common challenges we're working on these projects around the globe?
Well, mostly it's the droughts. They're becoming more severe, more present in areas where there were usually no droughts. Now there are droughts, and across MENA regions, so this Middle East and North Africa, where I mostly where this is my domain, the drought has become so big that the desert is really taking on. But then in some regions, there is, because of the climate change, there is much more rain coming in. So, for example, in Arabian Peninsula, now we have a regreening, total regreening. And all the efforts are really fruitful, for example, in both Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates and the whole stretch. So it's really, we are observing a real shift and really climate change. It's very visible, in this very fragile environment such as deserts, because they are fragile. We can really see, because most of the people, when they think about deserts, they think there is no life there, but there is, and this life is very attuned to arid conditions and very attuned to not having any humidity, but to have it, at the time when they need it to sprout, or at the time where it's needed to grow. And this is really disturbing these ecosystems.
On the other hand, how well connected these communities from different parts of the world are to share their particular problems and challenges they are facing?
This is very it's a very valid point you're bringing on, and it's a very important actually point, because this is even though in today's day and age of technology and English and everything, it is a problem. And it is a problem because it's usually, like, if you look at the global deserts and where they spread, so some are in South America, and then you have the large one in North America. Then you have Sahara, which stretches across Middle East and North Africa. And then you have a little bit of desert in South Africa. And then you have a huge desert in Asia, and China, and this whole part, the Gobi Desert. and which is also a cold desert, so it's a bit different. So everything that they do is still a bit different to what can be done in, for example, in Sahara, or it's different to what can be done in Latin America, yeah? Or in Australia, for example. So the communication is an issue because of the languages. It's an issue because it's left to rural communities to deal with this, yeah. And let's say in some more I don't want to say advanced countries, but in countries where the governments are really focusing in investing in their people, the people are not left alone. And you can see this most in China. Like China has done wonders, literally wonders for desert greening. And the system is so well organized. The people living in the deserts are so well supported by the government. And the afforestation efforts are the most successful. You know, if you could say like, yeah, I think they're the most successful. Like if you could, yeah, definitely. So China and India, they're these two countries that have the greatest success stories. And then you have countries, like US, where people are not really in any way supported. And this is somewhere, below the even the radar of their government. Or you have like Australia, where this is also again it's kind of left to the people, but this is a good thing because Australia is the country where the permaculture originated, and then it's kind of the hub of the permaculture, yeah. So a lot of people, which is like something that preceded regenerative agriculture. And yeah, so I think this is one of our biggest challenges. This is what we do, is this knowledge transfer, communication, and trying to bridge this gap of also like the gap between academic knowledge and implemented knowledge, but also the language barrier. And yeah, this is really, and also like continental, cross-continental, what can be done in China, can it be done in Morocco, for example, or can it be done in Brazilian desert?
What do you think will be the benefits of having more connected international communities in this regard? You already mentioned knowledge sharing, and it seems with the internet now everyone could be connected and get to know nearly everything, but we all know it's not that easy or simple as it sounds.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just that it's not so easy, it's also that it's sometimes the wrong things get like a hype, get really shared across, which doesn't, it's interesting. There are a lot of startups now, which is very good. Like 10 years ago, there were literally no startups working in this domain of desert greening, but today there are a lot. And some are useful, some are, semi-useful. I remember some, there are quite a few actually drone seeding startups globally, which of course cannot be used in deserts because this is useless in deserts, in true desert. But it is very useful in semi-arid regions, and it's very useful in desertified, like, well, there were wildfires, but it gets occasional rain, so it's not a desert, because this is how you plant a seed and then it grows, and this is fine. So this is something, but then people don't really, yeah, there are like a few different like this large scale approaches to desert greening. I can say that working from my personal experience and from what I've observed through this 15 plus years in this field of desert greening, is that working with local people and local communities is literally the only way forward.
If we think about climate change for an everyday perspective, do you think desertification is sufficiently present in the conversation, or are there more popular, let's say, topics around climate change?
No, I would say no, absolutely. And if you ask, if you ask a kid, I always do that, because on this, on the Earth Day in April, I love to do these free workshops with the kids in the school where I'm like at that moment. If I'm in, I don't know, in Austria, in Greece, wherever. So when you talk to kids and you ask them, okay, what is climate change? They will tell you, well, we don't have any more ice in the North and the South Pole. And this is what kids know. And then you always have to bring them to their own environments, to their own surroundings, and ask them, okay, did your granny tell you how it was? Did your mama tell you how it was? Because, for example, for all across the Southern Europe, desertification is the most prevalent, and we see it. Like, it's really observable for anyone who's now middle-aged, like, for example, like me. When I was a kid, I remember Greece. I remember Serbia, where I'm originally from. I remember Serbia being green. I remember the winters with a lot of snow, and okay, it's hot summer still. But now with this flash flooding intensified every year, and with a lot of wildfires, there is less and less green area. So, for example, my home country, Serbia, lost 76 or 80,000 hectares of forest just within 10 years, the last 10 years. And it is like this again, this is one of the bigger problems of desertification across the Europe, is land mismanagement. So it's like cutting the forests but not replanting new forests, but it's also wildfires that could have been prevented, but then it's also flash floods, and it's like this monocropic agriculture, which again destroys the soils, and when the soils are barren, there is nothing to hold them. So when the flash floods come, so everything just washed off. And desertification is definitely not enough in the vocabulary of everyday people, and they don't know that we lose like yearly the size of a smaller European country, like the size of Greece. We lose to desertification every year.
What do you think? We tend to talk about temperature rising, ice melting, rather than desertification while discussing the impact of climate change.
I think it's very hard for this. This is, I don't know, but this is what I believe. I think it's very hard for anyone who had never been to a desert to imagine how it can be more desert. So because this is the thing that is hard. I try to explain it like this because I have 4-year-old. So I try to explain to my kid like this, say like there is this specific plant, and this is actually the story of the ancient desertification, how it started across the Levant, so across the cradle of Western civilization. And there was this specific plant. It's called Moringa peregrina, and it was growing. It still grows in Sinai and in Arabian Peninsula. It grows in Sahara, and it's a tree, and it's a specific tree. It's a termite-resistant tree, and its trunk is very sturdy and very hardwood, amazing wood for building ships, but for building anything because it's termite-resistant. And then its seeds at the end, they have a specific essence when they're ripen enough, they can be harvested. And they were one of the most favorite perfumes of the ancient Romans and Egyptians and ancient Greeks. And so Moringa peregrina became the most traded commodity in the ancient times in the Mediterranean. The most traded. So that meant that they've cut thousands and thousands of trees in such a fragile environment, and because they were trading it for oil, for tree trunks, for wood, but also for food because it was edible, and the honey of it is also very famous. So this was the first first deforestation that we've done, but also the first start of how desertification started to spread. Because we have records, both Paleolithic, both anthropological and in history in Britain, that ancient Egyptian, when ancient Egypt was formed, it was formed in a green, lush Egypt. It was not a desert. So it's for me, from my belief, desertification is man-made, not solely from climate change. It is also again man-made, but it's also something that's very much fueled by humans mistreating the nature, mistreating their surroundings, so their soils, their plants, their everything. And because it's so hard to see, because it's hard to perceive, yeah, these differences of what, how much more hotter, how much more worse can it be, that in desert conditions, this is why I believe desertification is not such a high topic while it actually is. And land degradation is a huge part of what desertification is.
How is Afforest4Future playing a role in reversing desertification?
So we work a lot with knowledge transfer. And then what this means is trying to communicate with local NGOs and, local people or local seed growers. Yeah. What was the importance of these native trees? And what is the importance of preserving each Moringa peregrina now, because it still needs, its seed can wait for, years in the desert, but when it gets a little bit of drop, it then sprouts. And but it still needs this little bit of drop, yeah. So it's important that we regrow the native, that we keep the local native biodiversity, and this means that we have to invest, okay, in these trees. They're in some, in some areas they may not give you direct profit, and so this is also, but if they're well integrated in an agroforestry system, they bring in biodiversity, they bring in so much more. So then it's just basically educating the local people on something that their grandmothers used to do naturally. And this is the thing. Now, I think we are now in this exact gap that like some 120 years ago gap, which is like grandmother or great grandmother, and then if it's a great grandmother, it's lost already. Yeah? The knowledge is lost, so it's only we have to bring it back. If it's a grandmother, then it's good, we can still remember the stories, yeah, and tell them. I tell you a short, if we have time, yeah? I tell you a short story of Peloponnese, yeah, in Greece, because it's also facing desertifications and drought and land degradation due to forest fires, due to flash floods, is like a lot. One thing, there 100 years ago, so let me just think. So 80 years ago, or 100 to 80 years ago, there were 65,000 sheep and goat herding this little area, yeah, of Tirea, where is our living lab in Government for All. And so you can imagine, with lots of olive trees, lots of vineyards, they would just roam and eat the grass and poop a lot and fertilize the soil. So the olives were very good. And then fast forward to today, we have in that same area 5,000 goats and sheep, from 65 to 5,000. So of course your soil is not holding on. Of course you have, fertility issues. And of course, you have a fire, you have like, a landslide, and the topsoil is washed away and everything. They're being instructed to clear the undergrowth of olives so that it's just soil and olive tree. So how, if you make the soil dead, how do you think it will, give you any fruit? This is not possible. This is not the real solution to wildfires. Eh? So this is what we now have to basically bring back the narrative of that it is good to have sheep and goats roaming around, and this is silvipasture. Like scientifically, there is a term. It's very specific to Mediterranean. It's something that has been here for eons, and then we decided to cut it and to herd all the sheep and goats in these little factories, and to see, we still think we can just put chemicals and olives will be still tasty and good and whatever. So yeah, this is I think one of the very nice, very visual stories when you want to think, how something was when our grannies were, but today it is not. And it has a lot to do also with this fast forward, industrialization and now digitalization and everything. And nobody wants to be actually the goat hoarder, but you have to have a person doing that. So it's a lot to do with changing the narrative of how the shepherds are being observed by the people, because at the moment it is not as as a nice profession as it was then, because now it's like, oh, is your daughter gonna marry a shepherd? Like, it's the worst thing. So we have to invest a lot, and this is what we do now, is not to just tell them that they should do it, but it's also to change the narrative. It's a lot about branding and remarketing and repackaging this profession to the youth, to the young people. How do they perceive it? But so yeah, so it's like a lot can be done with making it cool, with observing the sheep by the drones, having the apps, so in involving the technology into shepherding, so that the shepherding becomes cool again.
Sometimes it's not about reinventing the wheel, it's about to reconnect with ancient methodologies, right?
I agree 100%. Sometimes it's just about that, is unlearn and then relearning what your grannies knew.
At SAE, we talk about bringing science to practice. So from your perspective, how well connected are academia and scientific research with real-world applications addressing challenges faced by agroforestry communities and stakeholders across the value chain?
It really depends. This is what I would say. It really depends on the region, on the country, where, yeah. Some regions, like, okay, in Europe, I would say it's kind of okay-ish, but still you have people that are absolutely uninterested to change anything, not even interested to hear, to change, because this is the thing. They're not really ready to give up a tractor that their father left them, that was then a holy grail. To have a tractor, you would be the boss in the village. Yeah. So this is, I think, there is a lot of this. Again, going back, there's a lot of this social dynamics narratives that need to be changed. This perception of what a successful farmer or successful, agriculturist should own, should have, and this is very hard. This is, I think, this is the biggest part. This is generally globally, this way I can say, this is a globally, the biggest challenge is to break the bonds of conventional agriculture, is to break the bonds of the father-son connection. Not in this regards that, okay, my father left me the tractor, so I'm the boss now. This is the thing, like, to break this tractor perception, the thinking that if you have a tractor, you are now, set to go. So this is somehow everywhere. This is a problem. Everywhere where industrialization happened, this is the biggest challenge, is to leave it, to say, okay, I don't need this.
Afforest4Future is part of COP for All, a research and innovation action founded by the European Union, part of the program Horizon, to support the implementation of the EU mission Soil Deal for Europe. What's your take for Living Labs and how these co-participation spaces enable the creation of new frameworks, methodologies, and systemic approaches for achieving sustainable food production systems?
I think it's we're very happy to be part of Government for All, because it's a enormous opportunity to learn. It's like a learning curve. It's very nice that you can observe 5 living labs in the same time, and their different dynamics and growth, and how also, which I think is very important, how people interact with soil, because we are one system. This is by default, is how we are acting toward the soils, that the soils can then act towards us. It's what we give is what we get, and yeah, it's important because they're all Mediterranean. They're all facing some sort of desertification issues and droughts at different levels, and there are a lot of cultural differences, but then there are also a lot of similar things that are done in each of the living labs. And for us, it's very, like, we're very happy to learn and to participate, and hopefully to contribute to other living labs, especially in terms of combating desertification and dealing with arid and semi-arid agricultures. This is something that's our expertise, our domain, both academically and in NGO itself. Yeah.
This project lasts around 4.5 years, but the changes sought are long-term. How do you think it should be worked on to generate long-term commitment and facilitate a feasible transformation?
So, like, we were at the very early stage at the project now, yeah. So, don't want to talk too much, but at least what I know, what we are trying to do is have really this participatory action, having a lot of stakeholders involved, a lot of this open meetings where all the farmers, but also all the olive processing owners, or, these cooperatives, these factories that process olives, and other producers, because for example, in our region, there's also pistachios being produced, oranges, citruses in general, almonds and stuff. So it's like having it really open, an open discussion, and really bringing in as many people as possible, focusing on youth and trying to see how to engage them, trying our best to engage them so that I believe they feel they start to develop this feeling that this is their project, yeah, that this is what they're part of. And then I feel that we will have them in for longer. So this is all like in tiny itty bitty steps. Yeah, this is what I feel like, especially when you work with local people. It's like that. So we had one of our first meetings this month actually, and there were a lot of farmers. So we were talking about soil sampling and how it is done, why it is done, why it is relevant for them to continue doing soil sampling. And we honestly this was like, we were just wanted to present. And then we were so happy when they just approached us. We got a group of 6 or 7 farmers that came and said, okay, we want to take you, because they know it will be me and my team. So they said, we want to take you so that we could do it faster, because we know all the locations. We will drive you in our cars, because this was a challenge for us, because we don't have a car. So we're thinking like, we have to rent a Jeep, or what do we do, See, we all have 4x4s. You just come, we will take you, and we will take shifts. And then we have like this 150 soil samples that we have to take approximately. So we divided it. It will be like 30 samples per farmer. It's perfect. For us, it's perfect. We get to have this, whole day or whole week with one farmer, where we will talk, where we'll engage them more into really one-on-one. And I think this is a good step forward, building more integrity for those farmers, more ownership of the project, because they're very interested to learn, how do you do it? Can we come with you in the field? Let us see. So this for me is a big encouragement, and I'm very happy. Yeah, going to their places, this is my region. We can drive to see this. Yeah, it's very nice. I think this is how you get this ownership and engagement in the project. Really one-on-one. I mean, unfortunately, you cannot sit and have one-on-one talks with like literally all the farmers in the region, but hopefully, we create this experience for them strong enough so that they can talk to their friends who are farmers, and it spreads.
Before finishing, is there anything you would like to add, question that I didn't ask you, or a message you consider important to highlight?
Yeah, I honestly, this is, I really like the question that you've mentioned. Why is it not talked more about desertification than it's talked about everything else? And I really wish more people started talking about desertification, at least in regions that are really suffering, like the whole of Southern Europe, because it's a topic that is talked about in desert regions. They're really feeling it every year, where there is even a bucket less of water that falls, it's felt. So I wish people started talking more and started to understand more the grievance and the importance of desertification, and also the capabilities and what we as individuals can do, because we can do so much. at least in terms of stopping and halting desertification, we each can do so much, because it's really nothing to just plant one tree in a year. It's literally nothing, yeah. And in the southern Europe, if you look, if all of us just planted at least one tree, we could do so much in 1 year. It's nothing.
I'm 33 now, but I remember when I was younger, the media often discussed climate change from a dramatic perspective, focusing on big figures, tragedies, emergencies, and drama. It seemed like there wasn't always a rigorous or pragmatic approach to what was really happening or how we could engage as citizens rather than just feel worried. What do you think the role of academia and research could be in more practical terms in shaping communication and generating meaningful debates on this issue?
I think this is a very valid question. I think there is a huge part that's still not being done by academic sector, that is psychology, sociology, and this how do they call it, like societal sciences, that they're still not playing their part and doing their part academically in terms of pushing the people and the masses towards positive climate action, towards mitigation. Yeah. And there is, in science, a lot of scientists are like that. They like to talk and speak only of what they know, only on of their domain. Yeah. But with that, you don't go anywhere. This is what I found out. Like, at least this is my belief. You don't go anywhere. It's fine when you go very specific in your domain, but if you really want to share your knowledge, if you don't want only your peers, and this is always such a small circle, literally I can name 10 people that are working on my domain that are important. So it's like this, if you don't want only these 10 people to know what you're doing, you have to open up, and you have to talk to multidisciplinary people, to a lot of people, and so that you can actually transmit your message. And this is why I say this academic sector has not done a lot. For example, we have a branding and marketing agency that we work with constantly, and work with to translate the message, to actually talk to people, and so that people can understand. Because this is psychology. This is like a science that people have to bad news. They have fight or flight or freeze response. There are these three responses. So if you say, the planet is going dooms, in 2030, there is no life on Earth anymore, what do you think people will do? Will they really fight, or will they flight, or will they freeze? Well, fight is not an option. You have just like people freezing and like, okay, business as usual, or you have people just running away from the subject and going in completely different directions. Flat Earth is this a huge, flat Earth in this day and age. There are a lot of people who believe in this. There are also a lot of people who believe that the ice age is coming, which is it's like, oh my god, oh my god. But this is something that I believe that we scientists have created in the past 20 years, because we did not collaborate. We did not collaborate properly in the 90s, in the 2000s. We did not talk, we did not communicate. This is what we have created. Yes, it's a disaster what is happening with our climate now, but you should have, shouted out that disaster a bit differently, so that people could engage in action, so that people can come and actually help you, and not just like invent things. The ice age is coming, the Earth is flat. This is the response of when you're bombarding people with disaster stories. And you're right, main media, if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. So they have to create such bombastic stories, and they have to always interpret this a doomsday scenario. But there is a solution. Let's all calm down. Let's take a deep breath. We are one with nature. We are nature. We are nature. Without nature, we don't exist. We are one. Let's all sit together at one table and take it slowly. We can still do this. I just think people need to take a cool shot.
Vesela, thank you so much for your time and for joining this podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Fernando. I really enjoyed this talk.
This is Rooted to Earth.